It's my real pleasure to have you all join us today for this webinar. This is for the Advancing Health Research Through Ethical Multimodal AI Initiative, and this is our Research Opportunity Announcement technical webinar. The first thing I wanted you to know is that we will be posting some frequently asked questions to our website, and we'll also be making some clarifying edits to our solicitation in the next couple of days. So please do refer back to our website and look at the solicitation again. Some of you also might have been having some issues with trying to submit through our Assist system. If you use this notice opportunity announcement, it should work. So we've updated this as well, and this will be reflected in the updated ROA. So please use this opportunity announcement number going forward in Assist in particular. My name is Laura Biven, and I am the lead for Integrated Infrastructure and Emerging Technologies in the Office of Data Science Strategy at NIH. Our office works with all of the different institutes and centers across NIH, so we cover the whole waterfront of the NIH mission. And so I think you will see that that's a characteristic of this research opportunity announcement as well, is that it's very cross-cutting in terms of the NIH mission. And you will see that this is very much a group effort, and we have representation from people who have contributed to this solicitation from all across NIH. We're really excited to announce this new initiative from NIH. Through this program, NIH is going to support the development of ethically focused and data-driven multimodal artificial intelligence approaches to more closely model and interpret and predict complex biological and behavioral systems. We expect to support teams that merge ethics and stakeholder engagement with artificial intelligence to inform data selection, preparation, artificial intelligence training, and model assessment. So I think you can see from this, from the language I'm using, that we're really hoping that you can use ethics as a design principle, both in terms of how you are preparing data for your artificial intelligence, as well as in the model training and assessment. There are some important dates on here, which I will go over in just a second. Just the agenda for today, I will provide some further opening remarks, and then I will hand it over to my colleagues, Dr. Maud Anwar and also Brittany Chow. And then we will hear for our other transaction awards specialists and officer, Mr. DJ Milliken. We'll then have some time for Q&A. And thank you very much to those of you who have written in already with some questions. We have some answers prepared for you. Just some housekeeping. All participants are muted, so you won't have a voice in this webinar, but you will have an opportunity to provide questions. You can do that either through our chat feature, or you can submit questions to our email address either during the webinar or after the webinar. We monitor that continuously. This webinar will be recorded, and we're hoping to have the recording up on our website shortly after today, so please take a look if you would like to refer back to these comments. And also, this is just for informational purposes. It doesn't obligate NIH to make awards, and also it doesn't supersede the language that's in our research opportunity announcement. So if you have any questions, please refer back to that announcement or send an email to us and we'll respond. As I mentioned, this is a really all hands-on-deck effort from across NIH. We have participation from a number of different institutes and centers and projects. Oh, my slides are not advancing. Let me try and fix that. I'm so sorry. Here's the beautiful graphic that you should have seen while I was talking about the dates and the purpose of this solicitation. Here's the agenda for today. I'm sorry. I hope they're advancing now. Here's the housekeeping messages that I just announced. And here are some of the members of the working group that has led to this solicitation. And as you can see, it's from folks all across NIH. And if I can just take a moment and ask, if you're on the webinar right now and you're part of our working group, just come and put your camera on and wave so that everyone can see who you are. We have a number of folks online with us. Not everyone, but a number of folks. Great. Thank you so much. Now, I understand what's going on. Okay, now for a quick timeline. We released the research opportunity announcement earlier this month on the 3rd. Today is the webinar, it's the 19th. Letter of intents are due on April 29th, and we really hope that you will take advantage of that opportunity. It's not required, but it really helps us, and it also helps us respond to you. If we have an opportunity, we may do that. But it really does help us at least prepare the review process. Proposals are due May 16th, and that's a hard deadline, so please make sure that you submit your proposals by May 16th, both through our Assist system as well as by email. And we hope to have negotiations for selected applicants will begin in June. So that means our review process will have finished, and we'll be contacting applicants who are sort of successful or who we want to engage in conversations around making awards by the end of June. And the earliest start date would be the end of August. Now for the purpose of the program. The purpose of this program is to develop ethically focused and data-driven multimodal AI approaches to more closely model, interpret, and predict complex biological, behavioral, and health systems, and enhance our understanding of health and the ability to detect and treat human disease. So whereas most applications currently use a single modality of data or a single type of data, this is an opportunity to have an AI model have the benefit of multiple modalities of data. So not just one, but also the context or the fuller picture of your complex system. And we're encouraging you to think about multimodal AI for complex systems level challenges. Another key aspect of this solicitation is the opportunity to bring ethics in, so considerations around privacy, fairness, accountability, transparency, inclusivity, and stakeholder needs and preferences as design principles for both the data and the model and the assessment. And we also understand that AI is a very rapidly advancing field. That's why we've chosen this funding mechanism so that we could support it in a very quick and agile way. And we're also asking that applications think about the complement of expertise that would be needed to carry out the research plan, but also to adapt and change as the technology changes. So, sort of seizing on new opportunities and be able to react to new technology changes. With that, it's my pleasure to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Anwar Mode, who's going to talk more deeply about some of the aspects of the solicitation. And Mode, I will advance the slides for you.
All right, so you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so first, multimodal AI, as Laura hinted that currently AI is focused on unimodal, single source of data, single type of data. So here we're looking into how different source and types of data, such as imaging, speech, omics, and other clinical data. And you can imagine many different types of data that you can think of. And also social determinants of health is very relevant. How we can use those different types of data in our AI systems and build models. Next. So multimodal AI promises to capture more of the complexities of biomedical and behavioral systems and clinical decision-making. So new innovations are needed for data fusion, model training, model assessment and applications. Innovative solutions are needed to ensure ethical approaches and consideration for stakeholders' needs throughout all stages of development, from data selection to preparation, model training, to model assessment and application. Ethical considerations such as privacy, fairness, accountability, and transparency are of utmost importance. A variety of stakeholders, such as researchers, patients, policy and science communities, and end users, need to work together to co-create multimodal AI systems that are more aligned with their values, preferences, and requirements. And AI is advancing faster than traditional funding timelines. So that's how this ROA is also designed. It's very flexible. Agile approaches to AI development are encouraged. So this initiative is an opportunity for biomedical researchers to collaborate with expert researchers in AI and ethics, and to engage with the stakeholders to ensure multimodal AI capabilities meet their needs. So the program goals are creation of ethics and data-driven multimodal AI models for use in biomedical, behavioral, and clinical fields, building portfolios of innovative projects that address system-level biomedical challenges using a co-design approach to multimodal AI that integrate the work of various stakeholder groups as appropriate, inform consideration for the appropriate use of multimodal AI, and take significant steps towards incorporation of ethical and co-design approach in multimodal AI lifecycle, using a translational or end-use application that will be identified and used as test cases for testing and evaluation. So the key aspects of this ROA is to develop this kind of multimodal AI models that would start with system-level challenges that would be able to address system-level challenges. Ethics is at the front and center of this, and stakeholder engagements is very important. Co-design, data preparation and selection iteratively developed with model development. Assessment and testing iteratively developed with rapid feedback to model development and model preparation. And multidisciplinary, multi-sector teams are encouraged. They should be able to be very agile, manage risk, and be responsive to change. Open science, transparency, and data protection. Best practices in open science and data stewardship needs to be addressed, and the team has to be full of expertise that who can do these things. So, and this would, the portfolio is up to 10 projects, and the proof of concepts is expected by the end of year 2. And the new system level biomedical research using multimodal AI technologies. Proof of concept demonstration needs to be for elucidation of unique opportunities, risks, and challenges for applying multimodal AI methods. Identification of consideration for the appropriate use of multimodal AI relative to other methodologies are expected outcomes of this program. So the scope of this is the proposal for the ROA can support multimodal AI for biomedical, behavioral, and or clinical research or applications. Applications appropriate for this opportunity must advance the state of the art with respect to generation, testing, and demonstration of new models using multimodal AI technologies using 2 or more different modalities of data. For example, text, images, videos, and omics data that have the potential for significant impact on the targeted biomedical research domain or system level challenges. This could be achieved through the reuse or adaptable reuse, tuning, fine-tuning, and or adaptation of pre-trained models. It is expected that new methods for multimodal data fusion and integration will be generated as needed. Use of collaborative multidisciplinary approaches that will include stakeholders impacted by or potential users of the anticipated AI solution that could include researchers, research subjects, clinical users, and or patients as appropriate and relevant to the proposal. Creation of a framework that would evaluate or identify ethical, legal, social implications throughout the life cycle of model development, such as increased risk of re-identification by linkage of multimodal data and auditing the representations learned based on ethical concerns. At this point, I'll give it back to Laura. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you so much. The application has a number of different components. We have this is all spelled out in section 2.3 of our applications. We have a cover page where we're asking for a budget table, an abstract, a short abstract of 250 words, a research narrative of 15 pages, which should include in that page limit any figures or images, but does not include the references list. So the references list is not included in that 15-page limit, and we don't have a page limit for the references. We're asking for a management structure and teaming arrangements, just a couple pages to describe that. A couple of pages to describe your data management and sharing plans that address both open science, transparency, and data protection. An opportunity to talk to us about the key personnel and include their bio sketches. An opportunity to present your budget and also the justifications with details. There's no limit on that. We're also asking specifically for the other transaction award. We're asking for milestones and deliverables, and we have a little sort of template or suggestion for how you can organize that. And then finally, another optional section, which is where you can put any information about pending sort of policy approvals. So we're thinking here about IRB approvals or data access, data use agreements or things like that might be pending and not necessary to submit to us until the award is made. But you can talk to us about the status of those things. To go into a little bit further detail about this application process, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Brittany Chow.
Thanks, Laura. Next slide, please. Okay, so first, I want to make some notes about the budget first. So the expected total budget is about 1 to 2 million per year per project. As a note, there'll be one award per project where the award will be given to the lead PI institution for each project, and then all other institutions participating in the project will be coming in through sub-OTA and being supported through that one award. We request that you make sure in your budget that you include details for all contributors, not just the lead PI institution, but all people being participating in this award. And you should also please include information on how you'll use and budget for computational and storage resources. CLIAT resources should make the use of NIH stride rates when appropriate. And while not required, we also ask that you include any information on the potential cost sharing or in-kind contributions. Next slide, please. And so this is an OTA, so it's not the normal NIH peer review grant process that folks might be familiar with. Instead, proposals will undergo review by an ad hoc review team for the specific solicitation, which will include members from the federal staff as well as outside experts as needed. And the OTA mechanism provides NIH with flexibility to select all part of or to modify proposals for funding. So different components of the full applications may be accepted into the final plan, may be considered in part or may be omitted. And the outcome of each review could result in a modified work plan based off the reviewer's comments. And then this modified work plan, as shaped by the review process, will serve as the blueprint for our final negotiation terms and the milestones for the resulting awards. Please note as well that we will not provide any feedback on letters of interest or proposals, except as part of the follow-up process on an as-needed basis. However, we do encourage you to provide letters of interest to help us plan for the review process. But these letters of interest are not required, are not binding, and don't enter into the review process as part of a subsequent application. The review criteria are also specific to this program and cover each of the research objectives described in the ROA. So we encourage applicants to carefully read the reviewer, each section for the review criteria as provided in the ROA. And it covers these 6 sections. The scientific merit of the multimodal approaches, the ethics-driven approaches, and the co-design approach, as well as the data model and software sharing for open science and data protection, the appropriateness of the team and the ability to adapt to change, and the appropriateness of the budget and research plan. And please note that the review criteria are weighted equally, and they are equally important. For more information, you can look to the ROA that has details about the questions they'll use to prompt reviewer feedback. Next slide, please. And so following the award, awardees will be expected to host an in-person kickoff meeting with NIH and any key personnel. We also anticipate meeting regularly between the awardees and the NIH program staff on an as-needed basis, as well as holding an annual in-person meeting in our headquarters here in Bethesda, Maryland, for all projects teams to help foster crosstalk and build a cross-disciplinary community of praxis. So these expectations are typical of other transaction awards, but are quite different from grants, and awardees can expect more consultation and oversight from NIH staff than in a normal grant process. Next slide, please. And so with that, I'll pass it to DJ to go over the OTA process.
All right, thank you, Brittany. So what are other transactions? I know a lot of people on this call are used to grants or contracts. So a lot of times other transactions are defined by what they're not. And they're not a grant, they're not a contract, they're not a cooperative agreement. They're actually something completely different, but they're also a little bit of each. So they are a lot more flexible. They allow, some negotiation between the NIH and potential awardees. And what they actually are is, they're an agreement between a government and an entity that kind of can be nimble and flexible as we go. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these funding instruments, they don't, you won't see the normal terms that you would in a contract or a grant, but you will recognize some of the same terms. So for instance, we won't directly cite the FAR, but you may see some terms that are similar to what you would see in the FAR. And same with grants policy statement. The NIH grants policy statement regulates grants, but as I mentioned, this is kind of a hybrid. So you'll see some grant-like terms, you'll see some grant-like, things in awards, but this is meant to be a little bit more flexible than those mechanisms. So as we kind of get through the review process and the award negotiation, there'll be a lot of back and forth between our office, the OT office here, going through different milestones in the negotiation of costs and different areas, different terms of the awards. Please, next slide. So the regulatory requirements of the proposal. So as Laura and Brittany mentioned, the proposal should address all of the ROA requirements. So everything that's outlined in the ROA should be in your proposal. But if it's not otherwise specified, you have the flexibility to make formatting decisions that fit your proposal. So if it doesn't say specifically, then you have that flexibility. And as Laura mentioned, additional content in the proposal, such as bio sketches and letters of support, don't count towards the overall page limit. Next slide, please. So the negotiation process. So as has been mentioned before, the electronic application needs to go through ERA Assist and also simultaneously to the email address stated here. This will ensure two things: one, that we receive your proposal, and two, that we can actually make an award if selected. So the email will ensure that we receive it, and then the fact that it goes through ERA Assist will allow us to use that system to make the ultimate award when we get to that point. Negotiations, they are recorded and documented by the NIH. So everything that we go through, the entire process, will maintain on our award file. And then the formal applications, the deadline here is May 16th at 5 p.m. local time. So with the understanding that everyone's in different time zones, we'll get timestamps of your local time. So as long as we receive it by then, you should be okay. And then ultimately the recipient of the awards, the prime recipients and the flow downs to the sub-OTs will be expected to comply with the regulatory requirements listed in the OTAs, which, as I mentioned, will be negotiated, but will be finalized in the bilaterally signed agreement. Next slide, please. So this slide is very important. So start now. So as I mentioned, the applications need to go through ERA Assist, which is an NIH site that allows us to make the awards. This is the site we use to achieve funding and to deliver funding to awardees. There is a process that is, some of you will be familiar with, some of you that aren't. You will have to register. This number here will help you if you run into any issues. It is the ERA help desk. They can help you if you're having any issues registering, any issues logging in, finding the ROA in ERA. If you're having any of those issues, contact this help desk number. But also, in addition to ERA Assist, you need to be registered in the System for Awards Management, or SAM. It's required to do business with the U.S. government. So I believe actually even ERA Assist will ask you for your 12-character number when you're submitting your application. So this is very important. I would say if you're not familiar with this, I would start on it as soon as possible, because it can take some time to get approved and processed. Next slide, please. So the award terms, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but there are many different award terms that you'll see in different OTAs. But the uniqueness of OTAs allows for flexibility. So once we sign a bilateral agreement for the milestones that we maybe incrementally fund with teaming arrangements, we can modify them as we go. So if we come to an agreement that we think is going to work, at the end of August, and we go a couple months, 6 months down the road and decide, okay, maybe we need to pivot a little bit here. This is not quite working as we thought. We have the flexibility to do that. And you will have all of that outlined in the OTA. We'll make that very clear when we get to the point of making the award. But there are, here are some other things like, reporting requirements. All these things will be outlined in the actual OTA agreement. And of course, we're available to answer any questions throughout that entire process as well. Next slide, please. Requirements after the award. So as I mentioned, this will be a continued partnership. The terms and conditions will be in the agreement, can be amended throughout the life of the agreement. But as we go along, we do require financial and progress reports, and this helps us to kind of understand where we're going, where we've been, and allow us to kind of judge when we do need to make those pivot points. Kind of understand that as we go. And part of that process will be asking our awardees and our organizations that we work with to implement management controls and risk mitigation strategies that should also be included in your application. So if, for instance, if you're proposing subawards or teaming agreements, you should include risk mitigation strategies for those agreements. So you can outline, how the different roles and responsibilities of each organization will work. Next slide, please. Oh, we're at questions. So Laura, are you going to handle the questions here?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I
Sure.
think we have a couple of streams of questions. We had a number of questions that were written in beforehand, and so we're going to walk through those as we try and triage the chat as well. So please use the chat if you have more questions. I will stop sharing so that we can pick some of those up now. But I think, Brittany, you are going to start with some of the questions that were written in before.
Right. So thank you all for everyone who provided questions ahead of time. I'll go through some of the ones we received now while my colleagues triage our chat. So first question was, of the stated review criteria, are all considered equal, or are certain metrics given more importance? And the answer to that one is that all review criteria are weighted equally. Next question was, are there any restrictions in resources and data sets available for use in the proposed research? There are no restrictions, so applicants are responsible for ensuring that they have the appropriate access, IRB approvals, etc. And as part of this opportunity, applicants are encouraged to deeply consider and address the ethical aspects of data sources and reuse. The next question is, what specific aspects of intellectual property are subject to negotiation at the time of award? And are they related to ownership, licensing or usage, confidentiality, or trade secrets? And the answer to that is that all aspects of the intellectual property are subject to negotiation in accordance with the NIH policy and dependent on the needs of the initiative. Next question, is there a specific guideline, format, or template requirement we need to use for the research narrative? There's no template for the research narrative, but proposals should address each area that's outlined in section 1.3 research objectives in the ROA. Applicants are also encouraged to consult section 3 objective review when writing the research narrative. Next question, was, may references in appendix or a section be outside of the page count, or do they need to stay within the 15-page count? And so references are not included in the 15-page limit for the research narrative. Next question. If offerers provide more than one proposal submission, do we need to provide a letter of intent for each proposal submission? So the answer for that is that letters of intent should correspond to single proposals, but a reminder that letters of intent are not optional, are optional, but are highly encouraged. Next, once registered within ERA Commons, it's our understanding that the proposed submission must be submitted via ERA Assist. Can you please confirm that the signing official must be the one to submit our application proposal? So the answer for that one is that the application and proposal must be submitted by the official business official or signing official in ERA via Assist. The business official is the individual named by the applicant organization and is authorized to act on behalf of the organization to assume obligations imposed by federal laws, regulations, requirements, and conditions that apply to other transactions. And this individual may be equivalent to the signing official, SO, in ERA. And please note that application should also be submitted by email to the address provided on our website, which is odmultimodalai@od.nih.gov. Next question is, will there be an additional opportunity to submit questions after this webinar concludes? And yes, we are monitoring our multimodal AI web email address, so please feel free to submit any questions at any time. Next, are there specific compliance requirements for clinical research? For example, the specific requirements for an institutional review board to perform this research. And yes, research should follow existing NIH policies and guidance for things like, for example, human subjects research. Next, are there level of effort requirements for key personnel? And no, we do not have any requirements for level of effort of key personnel, but the level of effort should be appropriate for the proposed work. And then the last question that was sent in is that I have questions about whether my proposal will be in scope and competitive, and who can I talk to? And so for questions that are specific to your proposal, please feel free to reach out to us by email, which is once again, odmultimodalai@od.nih.gov, which is also provided on our website. We'd be happy to provide our perspectives on whether your ideas are within scope. However, assessing the merit of your ideas is for the purview of our review committee. And with that, I'll turn it to Laura to answer some more questions.
Thank you so much, Brittany. And we have a couple of questions in the chat. Let me start by answering a couple of them. There was a question about sort of what constitutes multimodal AI and whether sort of different types of imaging data brought together would satisfy that requirement and the focus of this solicitation. We're trying not to make a hard and fast determination about what constitutes multimodal AI. We're leaving that up to you. However, we do have a review question that asks about the sort of scientific merit and of your approach, of your multimodal approach. So when going into the solicitation, we were thinking about really different types of modalities, so like image data with omics data or something like that, but you might be able to make the case about different types of imaging data brought together. We leave that up to you. Let me see. There was a question about multiple PIs. We don't use that terminology in the other transaction award paradigm. Instead, we will have, what you will submit is you'll submit a proposal that designates a lead institution, so a lead PI in that lead institution, and that is the institution that will receive the award from NIH. All the other MPIs or other components of the project will be supported through sub-OTAs, so sub-awards from your OTA. And so some of those institutions you might want to designate as having a co-PI, and some of them might just be other types of participants. We leave that up to you. Let's see. Anyone else wants to chime in with one that they've seen, please feel free. There's a question around whether our focus is more around creating new multimodal AI capabilities or the application of those capabilities. And I think it's more, if we had to choose, it's more the former. The way I think about this is that the core of this is creating these new multimodal AI capabilities, but we understand that you will have to think about how the data are prepared. So there's going to be some amount of effort that you put into data preparation or perhaps even collection, and also how you assess the AI and what its real potential impact could be. And so there's going to be another amount of effort that you put into thinking about applications and assessment. So those are going to be, absolutely key components of your program, but the real core of it is around developing the multimodal AI capabilities. There's a question about the expected outcomes and the statement around having a proof of concept. So I think we understand that at the end of 2 years, you're not going to necessarily have a fully optimized, functioning multimodal AI capability. That's not the expectation. The expectation, though, is that you're able to demonstrate that the sort of viability of your approach to create data that will be used in the AI, and the approach that it will have potentially helpful impacts on research or perhaps even clinical impact. And we will work together during that first year to determine what the appropriate metrics are to define proof of concept at the end of 2 years. So we'll work together on that definition of what proof of concept means for your particular program. Let's see, I think my colleagues are typing in some answers.
Laura, this is Dawei.
Please.
Can you hear me okay? So there's a couple of questions I think I saw and someone answered. Is about this program is require a single use case, or is that okay, or multiple use case, or like has to be kind of have multiple applications? I think the answer is probably just up to you to address the challenges in Ruby's presentation. There is 5 challenges, so it's not depend on what the specific case that you're dealing with.
Right. I also see a question about whether the PI can submit more than one proposal. Yes, they can. They just should be very distinct scope. But you can be on more than one proposal, and you can be the lead PI on more than one proposal. There's a question about the intersection with the STRIDES program. So the STRIDES program provides an opportunity for discounted rates and cloud computing. And so if that's competitive with other options that you're considering, we encourage you to take advantage of that. That may require you to be registered, your institution to be registered with the STRIDES program. There's a question about what it means to have a team that's able to adapt to change. And I think you can think about this from a couple of different angles. What we're looking for is a somewhat over-engineered team, or we're looking for a team that has a complement of different expertise, so that as new technologies come on board, you're able to really take advantage of them. Or if you need to pivot and sort of change your research plan, you're able to do that by either having those expertise in-house or being able to draw on them quickly. And also just the forethought of thinking about what those potential risks might be and how you could plan and have mitigation strategies on hand. There's a question about the page limit in the situation where you have multiple institutions on the project. The page limit is for the overall project, so it should describe, the work that all of those institutions will take on collaboratively. So it's not 15 per institution, but it's rather 15 pages per project. Just trying to find out some unique questions here. So there's a question on the budget, and our sort of guidance to you was that we are anticipating these projects being around $1 to $2 million per year for 2 years. Those are not hard caps, so you are free to go over or under with appropriate justification. But that's our estimate. We do not take into account established investigators versus new investigators. That's not part of our review criteria at the moment. There's a question about submitting confidential information by email. If you have, I think maybe you should contact us by email to discuss that a little bit further about the nature of the information that you'd like to transmit. There's a question about whether this is the only deadline for this solicitation, or if there will be other deadlines or further research opportunities. We can't comment on that. Right now, this is what's available. We do realize that it's a very tight timeline, and we hope that you can meet the challenge. There's a question about academic and industry partnerships and whether that's allowed. DJ, maybe you want to comment, but I believe so.
I'm sorry, I was answering questions in the chat. Well, can you repeat?
Sorry, the question, so let me ask, I'll combine a couple of questions. There's a question about whether academic institutions can partner with industry and also with nonprofits, and whether they all could be the lead institution or participants.
Yeah, so I think, one of the beautiful things about OTs is that you can submit those types of partnerships. I think we would prefer to make an award to one prime organization and then have a clear breakout of what each role of each organization or industry partner will be. So I think that's the clear delineation, is that one organization should be the prime submitting organization, and then have clear delineation of what the roles of the other organizations will be.
There's a really good question here, which has also been submitted to us by email. Sorry, we didn't address it already, about human subjects, data from human subjects research, and also from vertebrate animals. There was an error in our research opportunity announcement. Those are allowed, and we will make that adjustment in the ROA in our update coming up in the next couple of days, and also we'll post it as an FAQ. So that was an error in the cover sheet section for the solicitation. International collaborators are also allowed, and we encourage you to look at the eligibility section in the research opportunity announcement, which has a little bit more detail. If you have specific questions, you can reach out to us. There's a question about whether the award needs to be multi-institutional. That's not a requirement. If you have the necessary expertise at a single institution, that's fine. There's a question around whether the emphasis is more around adapting existing models or creating new models. We want to create new capabilities in multimodal AI, and we understand that that might mean starting from scratch, or more likely would mean starting from an existing model and thinking of innovative ways to adapt it to a multimodal context. So all of the above are within scope. There's a question on what we mean by the sort of focus on ethics, and whether the proposal needs to address all of the sort of listed facets of that term, thinking about transparency, about equity, around bias, or whether the proposal could focus on privacy. Our encouragement is for you to consider the concept of ethics and the way that you think about that as a design principle in its broadest context. And we offered some suggestions around, bringing in different stakeholders, whether those are data subjects or end users, or perhaps even just people on the research chain. I think that would be really helpful. That's sort of a key component of this program. There are questions around the margins and font size for the research narrative. I think we're going to have to get back to you on that, but I don't think we're going to stray from whatever guidance we give normally for that sort of thing. Questions about whether to include in your budget the in-person kickoff meeting and participation in the meeting with NIH. Yes, please do. There's a question around whether we can share with you a list of potential partners. Unfortunately, I don't think we can do that. I think it's on you to find your partners. So we hope that you can find each other.
Paula, I think there's one question is a general applicable. Is our application reviewed by a panel of external experts or only give through the NIH internal panel?
Sure. We reserve the opportunity to use both experts within NIH and also external to NIH. We'll take into account the timescale that we have to complete the reviews, but it's not going to be the normal CSR review panel. It's an ad hoc panel that we put together specifically for this solicitation. Okay. This is an invitation to my colleagues to call out if you see new questions. I'm seeing that I think we've answered most of the ones that I'm looking at. Is the IRB required at the time of application? No, we'll ask for that as part of the negotiation process, but we do have in our updated version that we will post in just a day or two, we'll have a place for you to talk to us about the status of your IRB request. And yes, just to clarify, there'll be only one lead PI, so we'll make a single award to a single institution, and the rest of the team will be supported through sub-awards from that institution. So from our perspective, there's one lead PI, but you're free to designate other key personnel as co-PIs. You can propose to generate data. That would be within scope, although we want to make sure that that's not the primary focus of your proposal. The primary focus should be on the development of new multimodal AI capabilities. But certainly if there's some data generation activity that needs to happen, that can be within scope.
Laura, I found another interesting question. How it is perceived the overlap with the current project, like if the current system generating the data, but is not public accessible yet, would that how they decided what is the overlap with this with the opportunity or not.
Yeah, sure. So you'll have to think, obviously you can't double dip for the government, so you can't be funded twice for the same work and the same activities. So those will have to be delineated very carefully. I think the other thing to consider there is also what's on your critical path for this program. And so you want to make sure that we're able to oversee the progress and that it's not completely beholden to work that's being accomplished through another award mechanism, because that puts your milestones and deliverables for this program in jeopardy. So you'll want to think that through carefully. DJ, I don't know if you wanted to say anything more about overlap between something that's already awarded.
Yeah, so we cannot fund something that's been awarded either by a grant or another mechanism. It should be new to this OT and unique to this award. If it's overlapping and receiving support in a different function, we most likely will not be able to support it. So it should be something that's unique to this initiative. So that's the best way I can describe that.
There's a question about if there's any qualifying criteria for the companies that participate. So for example, do they need to be VC-backed companies, or is there ownership threshold? I don't believe we have any requirements like that, but DJ, correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. I need to stop answering these chat questions.
No, you're doing a good job. I don't mean to distract you. There's a question about whether there are any qualifiers to the eligibility for private companies. So for example, do they need to be VC-backed companies? Is there an ownership threshold? Do they need to be US-based? I guess the US-based component is addressed in our eligibility section, but are any of those other qualifiers relevant?
Not that I'm aware of, but if there are specific concerns, feel free to send an email, and we can, discuss those privately. I think that would be appropriate.
There's a question about how to think about the applications of the multimodal AI capabilities. And we're thinking about that in a couple of ways. One is to demonstrate the potential impact and the potential benefit from developing these new capabilities, but also as a feedback mechanism to thinking about how to design them. So as you're thinking about which types of applications to think about, we encourage you to think about them from both angles. Some of the questions I'm seeing in the chat are quite specific to, proposal ideas. I encourage you, feel free to reach out to us through email if you want to get feedback on whether or not your ideas are within scope. That'll give us a little bit more time to look at them carefully and respond in a way that is a little more robust than what we can do just on the fly here. There's a question about, I guess the question I would phrase it as sort of how to choose the lead PI. I think you want to consider a couple of things. One is that they'll be the primary point of contact and accountability for the project from the NIH perspective. And so you want to pick someone who can oversee the technical scope, but also the institution will be responsible for enacting any subawards. And so you want to make sure that the institution is able to do that as well. Can we elaborate more on co-design approaches? So this is an opportunity for you to not be limited necessarily by data that are already existing and in their current form. So this is an opportunity for you to think about how you might want to process or change the representation of data, or perhaps clean data in particular ways, and that you can use it in a feedback mechanism, so have it tightly coupled to how you're developing the model itself. And the same on the application side. So thinking about different potential applications of your multimodal capabilities, and then how that might provide feedback into any design changes you might make for the model itself. And so that's sort of how we're thinking about the co-design activities, is that you're able to handle the degrees of freedom that you have both in the data, the models, and the application space, and have a tight feedback mechanism across those. Is there a need for a proof of concept to exist prior to submitting the idea in the proposal? And there's a similar question about the need for, results prior to proposal. Those things, I guess, always, if you have some preliminary results, those always strengthen a proposal, but it's not a requirement. And the proof of concept for your multimodal AI, that's something that we're anticipating being the result of this 2-year activity. So that's certainly not something we would expect in the proposal stage. I see we're at the top of the hour, actually. We will save this chat and answer questions either in our FAQs on our website, or if we're able, we'll reach out directly to you. But that's, I think the better situation is, if you haven't had your question answered by us now, please submit an email to us and we'll do our best to respond in the next couple of days. With that, I want to thank all of you for attending, and also thank my colleagues for helping with this presentation and with this solicitation and the program in general. We're very excited to hear from all of you and to see all your great ideas and proposals.